Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed is working currently, as crazy as that sounds. Thank you for joining us on tonight's episode of the Championship Preview on the Burgundy Zone. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And to be able to break down this championship preview, we thought we'd bring in a good friend of this show, Mr. Mitch Tischler. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, sir. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm happy to join you guys. I'm doing great. Feels like the game should be tomorrow based on my excitement level, but I guess I'll keep it reined in until Sunday afternoon.
Absolutely. And Mitch, the last time that Washington faced Philadelphia, we all know about the ending, right? The Jamison Crowder touchdown. But the way that Washington started out that game was probably one of the worst they've had all season. How do you anticipate Washington coming out to start in this game?
It's funny, they didn't start that game very well. They ended incredibly strong between Zacchaeus and Olamide Zacchaeus and Jamison Crowder. They really saved them to get the win there, especially since they were playing against Kenny Pickett. But I think that's the game that taught Joe Witt the most about this defense this season, because they went away from playing a lot of their base defenses once Jalen Hurts got hurt, and it went to Kenny Pickett. You saw them bringing blitzes, a lot of cluster blitzes where they were just overloading a side and then kind of slanting away from him. And they used that to try and shut down Saquon Barkley. And quite frankly, in the second half of that game, they did a really good job. It certainly helps that Kenny Pickett was the quarterback there, but let's not pretend like Jalen Hurts is Peyton Manning out there. He's had 4 wins in the playoffs in his career. He's never thrown for more than 154 yards in a playoff win. If it's me, I want Jalen Hurts dropping back as many times as possible. And if the Jalen Hurts pass attempts goes north of 25, I think the chances for the Commanders to win this game goes way up. So I think you're going to see an aggressive Joe Witt. I think you're going to see a defense that's flying around to the football. Talking to Frankie Louvu today, he talked about the importance of staying home and staying in gap integrity and gap control. I think that's something that they learned from the first two matchups with the Eagles. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a different attack this time around, the third time that they play them.
Now, I know that a lot of the press conferences came out today. Listen to Dan Quinn, Terry McLaurin. You talked about Frankie Louvu, among others. But what would you say was the biggest takeaway that you had from the pressers today? Anything that was said that really resonates with you?
You know, there's a lot to talk about, kind of big picture, and no one believed in us and all those different things. But we're talking about an NFC Championship game, and as much as it is talking about the X's and O's and how the Commanders can beat the Eagles, I think I go back to last week, and honestly, the beginning of the season with Dan Quinn, when he talks about anytime, any place, anytime, anywhere, anyone, you know, he's instilled this mindset in these guys. And going into Detroit, their mantra was they have to go through us. And I love that mindset, because as an NFL team, you have a bunch of alpha dudes, and you don't want to sit there and make them feel like the underdog. These aren't guys that have been underdogs that often in their lives. It's not a role that they relish in. And I think the more that you kind of pump them up and you know, makes them believe that they belong there, the more it matters. And so I saw the guys talking about be greedy in your greatness, I think was their little, you know, saying. And, you know, all those little sayings and stuff don't mean a hill of beans once you step onto the field, but creating the right mindset with these guys, both from, you know, ownership to front office to coaching staff to starters to backups to practice squad guys, I think is an important piece. And it's something that Dan Quinn's done an incredible job with this year. And I just, you know, each week, I don't want to say I'm surprised, because we're 20 weeks into a season. I shouldn't be surprised now, but I'm just always, you know, in awe of how he's able to get these guys to buy in to who they are and what they should be on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe it. I think to your point, I was just watching a clip of Russell Wilson on Pat McAfee, and they were asking him about like Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn. And what stood out to me about what he said about Dan Quinn was he's just the ultimate motivator. And I think that, just to your point, I mean, he just makes everyone from inside that locker room, outside the locker room, even inside the building, just believe in what they're doing day in and day out. So definitely looking back on it, Dan Quinn was the perfect hire for this team, and it's just crazy to be here right now. But getting back to the game, so the last time obviously they played, AJ Brown versus Lattimore was the big talked about topic going into that week. Is he going to be able to stop AJ Brown? AJ Brown had a pretty good game against him, but if you look on the flip side of that, you could say that he was coming off the injury. He only had like maybe a week or so or 1 day of practice throughout that week, and now that he hadn't had the reps within the defense, so to say. So now that he's a couple weeks in, this is the third time they play each other, second time for him. How do you see this matchup going with him and Lattimore, or him and AJ Brown?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think of Marshawn Lattimore last week against Detroit?
Didn't hear his name much, which means it's probably good then.
They target him one time on the opening drive and not the rest of the game. And I'm not saying that that's the reason that Mikey Sainer still ended up with 2 picks, that Jeremy Chin ended up with a pick, that Quan Martin ended up with a pick. But if you have a guy that opposing teams are reticent to throw at, I think that changes things. And I think what you brought up about the practice time and the time in this defense is a big piece of it, because the first time around against Philly, Lattimore wasn't he was playing the defense, but he was playing AJ Brown because he wasn't involved in the defense enough to necessarily know some of the nuances and know the calls and be comfortable in the adjustments that happen. So basically what Joe Witt did was he was like, "Hey, Marshawn, don't worry about anything else. You got 11, follow him around the entire day, and that's going to be your role." And yes, it wasn't pretty, and yes, it wasn't pretty with him with Mike Evans, in Tampa. But when you have a corner that you leave out on an island like that, they're gonna have good play. They're gonna have good days and they're gonna have bad days. And as good of a player as AJ Brown is, I think this is about Jalen Hurts almost more than it is than it is about the direct matchup between those two guys, because Jalen Hurts, aside from whatever may be the knee injury, whatever else may be happening, the dude hasn't looked right for a while, and maybe it's the first concussion, but really the second concussion that he got in the game 2 against the Commanders, that has been tough for him to come back from and get in rhythm and get on the same page as his receivers. But this secondary has been playing better and better and better as this playoffs has continued. And as much as AJ Brown can be a game wrecker, I mean, I think he had 1 for 11 in the first game of the playoffs that the Eagles played, and against the Rams, 3 for 30 or something along those lines. Like, he hasn't been a big part of it. Jalen Hurts hasn't been able to get the ball out accurately on time or in the vicinity of his receivers for the most part. It's going to be an interesting matchup. It's going to be something we have to watch, but I don't expect that we're going to see Marshawn Lattimore following AJ Brown all the way across the field, because he's more involved in the defense. He knows what's happening. He can play with some of the adjustments. Mm-hmm. He can work with the safeties and corners to play some mind games with Jalen Hurts, which there were 0 mind games. You knew when Marshawn was on the field the first time around that they were in man-to-man coverage, and you were going to figure it out from there. And quite frankly, if you tell a quarterback before the play, "Hey, I know that I'm going to have one-on-one coverage with a guy as big and physical as AJ Brown," they're going to be successful quite often. So I think this is a different set of circumstances, and we'll see a different result on Sunday.
Yeah, and obviously last time that we faced the Eagles, Mikey Sainristil was not poor by any means against A.J. Brown, was able to do a lot when he was put on the island as well, which obviously opens up a lot of things for Joe Witt. But that being said, Mitch, Sam Cosmi tore his ACL out for the year. Big loss up front for everybody. The big question now is, what do you do up there? Trent Scott looked very good coming in relief at the right guard position in the last playoff game. But it brings up a big question. If you should start your 5 best offensive linemen, do you think that includes Trent Scott, or what would you be doing if you had to make the decision?
I'm going with Trent Scott. And I'd stand on a table almost for it.
Okay.
Not necessarily for his blocking ability, which in the confined space of a guard spot against a Lions defense that, was clearly off their A game, he looked pretty good. The bigger reason is Sam Cosmi is a big part of the snap procedure, of the silent snap counts. That right guard is a big part of that. And Detroit is a very loud, but I don't know it's necessarily. I don't know that they necessarily have the same vitriol
Mm,
that Eagles fans have, but it'll be loud in Philly. They're going to have to do a lot of silent counts, and the fact that Trent Scott was able to step in and keep the operation moving smoothly, I think is something that folks aren't talking enough about because we've seen enough. When Michael Dieter came in at center, is the velocity of his snaps back to Jaden was different, and it threw off the timing of a lot of plays. You saw, he snapped the ball a couple times while Sam Cosmi was still looking back at where Jaden Daniels was for the silent snap counts. That's Michael Dieter. I think having that consistency in the snap game is very important, particularly in a hostile environment.
mm,
And if Trent Scott is able to continue to block the way that he is, I think that you keep him out there because the alternate is instead of you have four guys who have played their role all season, and you maybe have a little bit of a weaker spot moving Trent Scott into that guard role. If you want to move in Andrew Wiley and put Cornelius Lucas on the outside, I, maybe that works better, but you're changing two things, and two guys are going to have to play, in relatively unfamiliar situations,
mm.
particularly against that Eagles front with Jalen Carter there. I want a bigger body in
Right.
there at guard, and that's what Trent Scott kind of gives you. You look at what Philly does on the other side. They have Mekhi Becton playing right guard. That dude's 6'7", 350. Like he's a mountain of
As
a
big as
man.
that room you're in.
Right. And you watch the way that he road grades, for Saquon Barkley. I think you can look and get the same sort of thing, out of Trent Scott. And, even Redskins fans can look back at when they got who was the tackle from Eric he was
Eric
the tackle
Eric
for the
Flowers.
Giants.
Eric
Thank you,
Flowers.
Eric Flowers.
Yeah.
You look at how successful Eric Flowers was when he made that move inside. He's a mountain of a man, and you put a big body in a small space at guard. And even if they're just a speed bump, they're one of those speed bumps that you got to slow the car down for, two wheels at a time. Like you're not just blowing right through that and getting to the quarterback or the running back. So I think in this situation with the limited practice time and the limited time to make adjustments, you go with Trent Scott and you roll from there.
Yeah, no, those are all definitely great points. Flipping to the offensive side of the ball, De'Ami Brown had a pretty solid season, but it just seems like these last two games, especially in the playoffs, obviously, he's just become, I think, kind of like the De'Ami Brown that we all kind of expected we were going to see when he was drafted. What, if anything, you think has changed for him this season and into these playoffs?
Well, certainly confidence. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. The issue with Diami is that he's a decently sized body receiver, but he always seemed to shy away from contact. And not just I'm not talking about necessarily just when he would catch the ball and get hit. In his route running, he wasn't always the crispest route runner, and he would avoid, sometimes when you're running an in or an out, you need to make sure that you cut in front of the safety or in front of a dropping corner, whatever it calls for. And too often he'd kind of round off routes and go behind a safety and not really kind of position himself to be available to the quarterback. And I think this year, particularly, getting him involved in some of that screen game stuff, he clearly has been doing that extremely well. And I think both the combination of him, catching the ball in that quick game, but also he's done a really good job of blocking. I mean, that Terry 58-yard, 68-yard touchdown against the Lions when he took the quick pass out and cut right in between, right off the Ami's backside, to go to the house. I think, that's a big play that builds confidence. And
Mm.
when you talk about receivers and DBs, those are the two places that, guys are extremely athletic and extremely fast, and receivers generally have good hands, and confidence plays a big role in how they're able to compete. And, I think also Jaden, as much as he's built an incredible rapport with Terry, you see him trust De'Ami Brown. You look at that throw, the throw where he just threw it up top and let De'Ami run underneath it. I don't know that many other quarterbacks have really given De'Ami that opportunity. And as much as we talked about Sam Howell slinging the ball last year and wanting to get the ball downfield, he didn't really throw a ton of 50-50 deep balls. And when he did, certainly De'Ami Brown wasn't the guy on the back end of it. So I think that, I think his emergence, it helps Terry. I think Terry helps him. And at the end of the day, having two receivers that the Eagles are going to have to worry about for the first time, probably in Terry's career as they're playing Philly, will open up a lot of things for Zach Ertz and for Austin Ekeler in the middle of the field there. So I just think as good as Jaden Daniels is, he's elevating everyone around him, and there's few better examples on this team than what he's been able to do with Yami Brown, particularly the last couple of weeks in the playoffs.
My man, Mitch. Now, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, but you just brought up my next one that I was going to ask you. Last time that we played Philly, Austin Ekeler was not available. How do you think his usage is going to be in this game? Like similar to what we saw last game or possibly an uptick?
I think about what we saw last game, but I think he might be the biggest difference maker in what we've seen offensively the past two games. I mean, obviously nothing happens without Jaden Daniels putting on Superman's cape every Sunday and going out there and doing what he does.
Mm.
But but watching Austin Ekeler both in pass protection, his ability to blow up linebackers coming, and more so having the wherewithal of kind of knowing where to be and the kind of that veteran savvy of reading where the blitzes are coming from. He does a really good job of pre-snap recognizing what linebackers and corners are doing in terms of trying to get after Jaden, and he does a really good job of stepping up there. But also his ability to take those little 2 yard dump offs when Jaden is getting chased and take it for 15, 20 yards is a big part of it. And I think on our podcast on Beltway Football, I've talked a lot over the last half of the season about needing to get that running back pass game back involved in this offense, because I think it's a piece that other teams don't really account for, or they account for it, but it's probably the bottom of the list of their group of guys that they're worried about. And you saw it in Tampa on that final drive when they're driving for that late game win. Ekeler gets the quick pass out to the left, takes it for 20 plus yards. You saw it in the opening drive against the Lions. Quick little dump off to the right, takes it for 24 yards. The first matchup with the Eagles, you saw Ekeler, I think it was a 3rd and 16 or something, took a little middle screen for 22 yards and a first down. I just think that kind of his ability to be, to wiggle and get open and get extra yards helps open up kind of that middle level of the field, because now you have linebackers that are going to have to step up and have to worry about what the running backs are doing coming out of the backfield. And anytime you get Zach Bond out of the middle of that field for the Eagles, that's got to be considered a win, because that guy is a freaking superstar early on in his career.
Absolutely. Last question I have for you. Unsung hero in this game.
You're asking me who's going to be the unsung hero?
Yes, sir.
That's a very good question. Listen, I have been extremely hard on Jonathan Allen over the years. I think he's a guy that hasn't played in either of the first two games against the Eagles. Saquon, went nuts, obviously, but when you break down some of Saquon's numbers, it's, if my aunt had wheels, she'd be a bicycle. But if you take away the 25 plus yard runs from the 3 big runs from Saquon, he's averaging, just about 3 yards a carry against the Commanders. So if you're able to kind of set a couple of the edges and be disciplined in your gap control, I think that can make a big difference, because you look at the touchdowns in the second game that they played, the Eagles were attacking the Commanders' right side of the defensive line. And if you get, instead of having one of your DNs out there, you move John Allen out and he plays kind of on the edge. He sets that one a little bit harder. It's one more piece that it's a little bit of a tougher challenge for Saquon to get around. And I think, for John Allen, if he's able to be an unsung hero, I think it's just, it would be incredible for his legacy in the Burgundy and Gold. And I think for fans to, get off his back some, because listen, he hasn't been great for a while. He was very good in Tampa, and however good he was in Tampa, he was even better in Detroit. So if he's able to keep that upward momentum going, who knows what Sunday can be, but JA is my choice.
My man, absolutely love it. Mitch, before you get out of here, it's like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anyone watching hasn't followed you
No
yet.
prediction?
Of course, Instagram and Twitter at Mitch_Tischler. We're Beltway Football. We're doing podcasts, TV shows, live streams, all the way through the end of this ride. We'll be live after the game in Philly. I will say we have Maury Povich as a special guest joining us for our TV show on Sunday morning. Morey is the absolute best. He worked in Philly. He knows Jeffrey Lurie. Talked a little bit about their relationship, about what he expects being up there.
Mm,
He's a guy whose family picked out their original seats at Griffith Stadium. So they have followed this team and been fans of it for his entire life. And listening to him tell old stories and see the excitement on his face is awesome. So tune in. It'll be fun.
my man. Mitch, real quick, prediction for the score.
I had 31-30 Commanders over the Lions.
Take
I
notes,
got
all.
this one at 26-21 Commanders. We're all going to be, we might be skiing down Bourbon Street, but we'll all be in on Bourbon Street
My
in a
man.
couple weeks.
My man, Mitch, go and enjoy your evening. I hope that comes true, brother. Thank you so much for joining us from Ashburn. Go and enjoy your night. Drive home safe, Mitch. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Mitch Tischler. Always appreciate Mitch, man.
Yeah, nah, seriously.
Boots on the ground from Ashburn, helping us out a little bit. Before we are joined by our next guest, I did want to ask you this question, sir. This one was submitted on Twitter by our guy, Mr. Tony Franchise. His question is, this has been an amazing ride that I don't want to stop. Hall, so what would it mean to you guys if we make it to the Super Bowl?
Oh, it's a great question. Not even just a good question. That's a great question. What would it mean to me? I mean, it would mean like everything. Actually, it's funny. Me and Vinny were just like kind of like talking about because we've been talking about this throughout the whole season. As soon as Thursday, Friday hits, a couple days before the game, a couple days for the weekend, we start really talking about the game and like, oh yeah, like da da da. And this whole season, like we just been like, yo, like what if, and then for it to really just be on the doorstep almost of the Super Bowl, it's crazy. And we were just talking about today, like joking around. I was just like, I was like, dog, I might shed a tear. Like I didn't think I was ever going to see this in my life, just because of like when you're young. Obviously, you're watching football and like you understand it a little bit, but you're not really like unless you're like a coach's son or like some prodigy. You're not dissecting the X's and O's at like the age of 10 and 8, 9, 10 years old. I'm just watching the game as like a fan of the team. I'm not really knowing what's going on as far as ownership and all the ins and outs. I'm just watching the team, as a fan. But as you get older and you start to like really like follow the team, and if you're like a like super fan, kind of like I would say we are, and you learn the ins and outs, and not super fan, but like a diehard fan type
Super
person, like
duper.
people. But you kind of learn the ins and outs, and obviously we start doing this podcast, and then we start talking to the reporters and just all the stuff that you start learning and realizing over the years. As an adult, you're like, I don't think I'm ever going to see a Super Bowl because of just of everything, all the stuff behind the scenes that was
Right.
going on. So yeah, for this, I mean, look, we might not even win this game. Who knows? But just for the simple fact of it's even possible, this is the farthest I've ever seen them get since. I mean, I was alive in '91, but again, I was literally just turned 4 that season. That went in '92 to the Super Bowl. So I had literally just turned 4. So I don't remember anything about that other than I'm wearing a Redskins onesie. My parents are throwing a Super Bowl party. I'm just in a picture randomly. You know what I'm saying? So, um, yeah, it would just mean like literally everything. It'd be like top 5, top 7, like best moments of my life. And we didn't even win the Super Bowl. We're just getting there. It's like the crazy part
Right.
about it. So yeah, it would just be like one of the, to this point in life, top 7 moments.
Yeah, it would be incredible, of course. I mean, I said this to a coworker today. It's insane to be able to think that Washington could be in the Super Bowl and it not being in Madden, right? Like this is
Yeah,
a actual thing.
literally.
But
Yeah.
like, take it one game at a time. I don't want to put those expectations on them to get there. Of course, it's going to be tough. Philly is really, really good, especially defensively. Fifth in red zone percentage, first in points per game allowed, ninth in rushing yards, second in passing yards. It'd be tough, but how would it feel? I mean, it'd be a dream come true. I mean, all those conversations that you've had with friends over the years, like, what do they need to do? How do we get better? And, like, the fact that this just, like a Mike Tyson knockout punch where this season just comes around and really just takes everyone by surprise, it really would be, I think, mean more than most because in most Super Bowls, like, people expect it to happen. Like you could look back to like the Giants one against the Patriots, right? Where you're like, okay, like that was a surprise. Nobody that season of the Giants was going in expecting it, right? Well, like that's the sort of thing here is like it's one of those shock Super Bowl appearances you could say, and obviously would have full effect on both of us. So how would it feel? I don't really want to say how it would feel, but I'll say that it's awesome. It would absolutely be awesome. Now, the next question. This one is from the Colonel Hall. Jaden Daniels is the sixth rookie quarterback to start a conference championship game. The first 5 rookies went 0-5. Please comment on why Jaden will be the first rookie to win a conference championship against the Eagles on Sunday.
Somebody's got to do it eventually, right?
It's true. I mean, you are right, though.
I mean, look, I'm kind of right. But I mean, I just feel like this team is just playing with so much confidence, and obviously Jaden Daniels has a lot to do with that. Dan Quinn has a lot to do with that. The coaching staff has a lot to do with that. Adam Peters, I would say, has a lot to do with that. Just whenever he signed the guys, picked the players, it just seemed like he was just like, "You're my guy. I believe in you," type thing. And yeah, I just feel like they're just playing with so much confidence, and everyone just has that belief and number 5 back there that it just makes everyone just go that much harder. Like it just makes a receiver, like we were just talking about with De'Ami Brown, it just makes a guy like De'Ami Brown or anyone that's on the field just hold their block for a couple seconds, milliseconds longer. So like maybe like he gets out the pocket and makes a play, or maybe it springs a guy like Terry McLaurin for a 60-plus yard touchdown. Guys on the defense are like, and I've even heard like pro athletes that are on TV now say like, when you're on defense and you're making stops and like you got a good defense, but you really don't got that belief in that guy behind the center, or you don't really believe in the guy behind the center, and eventually like it just gets to that point where it's like even if you make a stop, it's like, or if you're down or in whatever the situation may be, it's like we did our job, but is he going to do his job type of thing? You don't really have that belief, and I feel like they were saying that when you have that belief in a guy, you just want to play extra. You want to play harder. You want to make that tackle. You want to put everything on the line on defense, because if we get the ball back to that guy, we know he's going to do something special with it. So I just feel like, yeah, I mean, I was joking when I say eventually someone has to do it, but eventually someone has to do it. And the way this season's going, the way Jaden Daniels has been playing all season, and the way that he plays against a team that he's already seen, the way that he's played against a team that he's seen twice has been unbelievable this season. So imagine hopefully what a third time going against a defense that he's seen already will do. So, yeah, I just think that everyone's just confident. They're playing with the most confidence in the league right now, the hottest team in the league right now. And those are just some of the reasons why I think they're playing. They have a belief.
Yeah, I will say that there's a lot of reasons why Jaden Daniels convincingly would be the first rookie to be able to win a conference championship. But what I'll ultimately say, I think it's due to the relationships in the locker room and what those guys have, that kind of bond. And this is a sort of like a scenario where they're kind of used to this kind of moment where everyone doesn't think that they have a chance, right? But they just find a way to make something happen. I think a lot of that has to do with what Jaden Daniels offers, of course. But ultimately, I think it just comes down to the fact that, like you had talked about, they always have this belief that they'll be able to get it done. And it does make you go a little bit harder. And when you get into these kind of zones, it's hard to do that. And special teams have this ability to win games and find a way to win. And that's what they've been doing on this 7-game stretch. So hopefully they could continue that. Now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Michael Phillips. How are you doing on this beautiful Wednesday evening, sir?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. The Commanders are 60 minutes from the Super Bowl. I don't see how we couldn't be enormously excited at the moment.
My man, and that being said, everyone knows that the road to the Super Bowl typically is on the ground. Washington did a little bit better job against Detroit in running the football. How do you think Washington gets the ground game going against the Eagles front? We know about Jalen Carter being without Sam Cosmi. It's going to make it difficult, but how does Washington, how are they succeeding in that category this weekend?
Yeah, I loved everything they brought to the table. Cliff Kingsbury, man. I mean, that was national TV against Detroit, going up against, right, Ben Johnson, the hot guy, the hot candidate, just to outdo him in that moment was fantastic. It's a little bit different kind of game here, though. You allude to that, and that's absolutely right, where, this could be 17-14. You got to hunker down in the cold, long drives, running the ball. and nobody's going to pretend that we have the better running backs. I mean, that's just silly. Of course, Saquon is legit MVP caliber. All that said, they did a nice job getting B-Rob some quicker uphill cuts, right? So less dancing around, less side to side. He got moving the pile, which he's good at. They got Austin Ekeler the ball in space. I think his return has been a huge lift to the team. Having Austin Ekeler, I think, meant Jaden did not have to run. Obviously he ran a ton, but it wasn't as crucial that part of the running game. So I think Austin Eckler's key to this. And man, game ball to Trent Scott, who I've been dogging on all season, showed up in that key moment. Philly's going to be picking on him on Sunday. You know that. He's going to have to be ready.
Yeah, 100% agree. Last time they played Philly, it was the Zacchaeus revenge game. He went crazy, had an excellent game. These past couple weeks, it's been this is the De'Ami Brown everyone wanted when he was drafted game. So who's going to be the guy that this week, a couple weeks ago, during the Falcons game, it was Zach Ertz. It's been his couple of weeks or here and there. Who's going to be the guy on Sunday that steps up and everyone Monday goes, oh my God, how did he do that?
Give me some chips on Zach Ertz. You go back to that game in Philly. He gets a late touchdown on the 2-point conversion. And it wasn't just business as usual for him. Like, it meant a lot to score in that game in Philly, even in garbage time. Multiply that by 10 in an NFC title game. I think of, watching the Chiefs last weekend, Travis Kelce, who's been fine this season. Mahomes has been fine this season, just if we're calling it what it is. He flips into that playoff mode of, I am Travis Kelce. You're not going to tackle me. We're getting this thing done. Everybody jump on my back. And obviously that's Jaden right now. But I think Ertz has that mode. I don't think he has 18 weeks of it. I think that's why we didn't see it all season. But it would not surprise me if he is bowling people over, getting some yak that we didn't see that side of him all season long.
Ooh, so a little bit, not pressurized, but obviously it's a little bit more feeling is what you're saying, Phillips. But now I want to talk about the last meeting. Washington obviously came away with winning the game, but they didn't play a near perfect game. They came out very slow. So what needs to change, absolutely has to change from the last meeting to this meeting?
Well, you look at that Detroit game, man. We can analyze it all day and so many great things about it. 5 takeaways, 0 turnovers.
Right.
I mean, that's the game right there. Even if Cliff hadn't been fully in his bag calling the plays, that's how you win a football game. And the Eagles have been really good at protecting the ball this year and not doing that. If you can make Saquon, I don't even want to say ineffective. I don't think you can make Saquon ineffective. If you can hold him to 80 to 100, feels like maybe a best case scenario. Make Jalen Hurts throw the ball. I don't think he's fully right. Obviously we'll see how he is on Sunday. Make him throw the ball, create the opportunity for those takeaways. And of course, the other way, protect the ball. Brian Robinson's got to protect the ball when he's got the ball. That's a thing we've seen from time to time. If you can win the turnover battle, I think that takes you a long way towards getting where you need to be here. And I completely agree with you on the slow starts. You can't have a slow start. Not in this environment, not in this game. You've got to find a way to be competitive. If they can be tied at halftime, I'll do a cartwheel up there in the press box. I think that's what you're looking at. This has been such a good second half team. I think you're looking at really just holding that game within reach when you go to the locker room so you can do what you do in the second half.
Yeah, just looking back on that last matchup out in Landover, it was literally Jaden Daniels put all 52 players on his back, the coaching staff, the owners, everyone. Magic Johnson, you can hop on too. Everyone hop on my back. I'm taking us to the promised land.
Uncharacteristic for Jaden.
Yeah, and it was literally outside of Zacchaeus, it was kind of really nobody else. Do you think that's the only path to winning this game, where it's kind of like, all right, Jaden, we got to rely on you again, or are we going to need contributions from the running game? We're going to need contributions from whoever it may be, the special teams, like a full, what do you call it, complimentary type of game.
I'm tired of saying there are ways where Jaden can't win the game by himself, right? I think back week 3, the Cincy game, and said, look, Burrow's going to score in every possession against this defense. And I think very highly of Burrow. I think he's the second best quarterback in football. He's going to score on every possession. I don't know that Jaden can win. Well, Jaden scored on every possession too and got some touchdowns instead of field goals, right? Can Jaden win a tight game where he's got to, really maneuver the ball down the stretch? Yes, he's done that several times. Can he win a game where he has to throw a Hail Mary? Yes, he can do that too, apparently. There's just seems like there's no path towards getting him. And what I love is he just doesn't get beat the same way twice. You look at the things Philly has done, great defense, obviously, has gotten to him in both meetings. He shrugs it off and gets rolling pretty quickly after that. His ability to process. Honestly, the thing that spooks me the most is the cold. I don't know that we've
Hmm.
seen a transcendent Jaden performance in the cold. It was chilly at that Philly game in Landover. I don't know, it's cold, like it's going to be cold on Sunday, and hey, it's snowing in Louisiana. So, this is the new world. Everybody's got to get used to it. That's something I've got my eye on for sure this weekend. But I think it goes the other way too. I really do think Hurts isn't 100% right now. If he shows up balling, the Eagles have a better roster, 1 to 53. I'm not going to come on here with y'all and pretend differently. They just do, and Adam Peters will fix that over the next couple off seasons. But that difference at the top, the difference between Daniels and Hurts, is massive, and that's why you have to give them a chance on Sunday to win this football game.
My man. And besides, my next question for you, not unsung hero, but who has been the most surprising player up to date, not including Jaden Daniels and Diami Brown?
Obviously last week B-Rob was such a head turner just because I saw that come didn't see that coming out of anywhere. I think you'd probably look at I loved him out of the gate, but Sandra still, I mean, just he hasn't just been rookie good. He's been great. And he's needed to be because Lattimore hasn't been what they thought he would be. I think St. Juice maybe kind of is what we all thought he
Hmm.
was. Sanders has stepped into that void. It's fantastic. I've loved watching him grow and develop. What he's brought to the defense this year has been fantastic. I think Dorrance Armstrong is another guy who, yeah, he did it in Dallas for 15 snaps a game. It's very different playing 40 snaps a game than 15. He's cranked that level up accordingly. And I didn't know what to expect from John Allen. Certainly not an unsung hero, obviously, but a very quick recovery from a very bad injury. He's been getting the job done the last couple of weeks, and they're going to be leaning on him Sunday afternoon.
Who do they need to contain? I'd probably say contain more, not let them dominate and take over more
Yeah,
between Saquon or Jalen Carter.
oh boy. I mean, I have so much respect for Saquon. If I had an MVP vote, I do think I'd vote for him. Lamar and Josh Allen have both had great seasons, notwithstanding that. Just what he's done this year. Man, if he gets rolling and trucking guys, that's not just a way to win, that's a way to demoralize people, right?
Mm.
Those 80-yard, 15 play, grind it down the field. You can't stop me drives. And that's why I say Allen and Deron Payne and those guys are going to be crucial here because you just, with all due respect, the Jeremy Chins of the world, they can't tackle this dude. They're not big enough. It's a group tackle when he gets to the secondary. Payne, Allen, those boys are big enough to tackle him. Maybe even a Dante Fowler. I think a Frankie Louvu could get him down. It is important to get him at the first level. Carter's great. Certainly, ton of respect for him as a player. But man, when Saquon gets rolling, there's just that Derrick Henry style feeling that things are inevitable and he's not going to
Mm.
be stopped, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
so
we
true.
got to stop Thanos. Now, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, Michael. But what would you say is the unsung hero? Would you predict for this game?
I want it to be Zane Gonzalez
Okay.
because I am not enamored with the kicking performances that we've seen this year by any of the kickers across the board, him included. Missed that fourth quarter one that was not a high degree of difficulty kick indoors in a big moment that did not fill me with hope and optimism. Philly's kicking game isn't great either. If we're talking about a low scoring game, this thing coming down to a field goal, we're all just going to clench our teeth and hope for the best there. Would love to see him come through with a couple of key kicks. Give me a little side of Dan Quinn, because there's going to be a point where they go for it on a fourth down and we all yell, "Oh, no, 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 no." Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, great. He's not afraid to make that call. That's how you got here. Live by the sword, die by the sword. Hopefully they live by the sword this weekend. Are you guys just fully on board with it at this point? Where are you at on the Kyle, where are you at on these fourth down situations? Like, are you just lean into it, or are you still scared to death every time they do it?
There is always a little bit of nervousness when it comes up to those fourth downs, but like the crazy thing is when Jaden, the way that he plays the quarterback position, just very calm and being able just to stand in the pocket and deliver the football. There is no panic that he gives off, and so like your panic kind of ceases because like it's not really something that you are concerned with. But I will say my nerve level with like the last fourth down conversion they had last game and the first of the season are vastly different, obviously, and a lot of that confidence comes from Jaden.
He's a
Yeah,
cheat code. It's incredible.
I would say in the beginning of the season, I was, no, what are you doing? Take the points, take the points. But I've gotten to the point now where my anxiety and stress levels go up. But I'm also to the point where I'm like, if they convert it, I'm like, okay, well, I know they're going to score points here because they have like scored like what, 150, 60, whatever it is, something crazy where whenever they convert on fourth down, they've scored 100 and something points throughout the season. So if they convert it, I just woosah because I know, all right, we're getting at least 3 to 7 points here. So that's where I'm
Man,
kind of at with it now.
we keep calling it on my show a magic carpet ride, and just like because when sometimes you have a lucky run or a hot streak or whatever, and it just feels like we're at the point now, 20 games of football in. It's not luck, and it's not a
Yeah.
heater, and it's not anything like, it'll bounce the other way sometimes. They don't convert 100%, but this is not accidental or luck. This is a team that is built for these situations.
Yeah, and a lot of credit for Dan Quinn talking about those winning time moments literally all throughout the season. But Michael, my last question for you. I'm not sure if you've already answered it already. Try to remind me. The offensive line, like what would you do at right guard?
Yeah, I don't know. I understand the desire to put your five best guys on the field, to, go with Lucas out there, do the slide, make sure Wiley has a role. I understand that. I also know how disruptive that can be in late January to ask
Mm.
everybody to do something new. I think, to switch it to a different position. I mean, I think one of the great moments this season is how many different ways Sandra still has played, how many things they've asked him to do and he's been able to. That's rare, and that's tough. Now, I feel that way about this offensive line, that every time they've shuffled, it does seem to land okay. I think Biotish is the most essential guy. So as long as they have him, I feel reasonably good. I don't know. Dan Quinn makes a lot more money than me for that reason. Do you roll the dice with Trent Scott? He was so good. Can he be good with a week of tape and an Eagles defense that is going to come for him? Is it worth the risk to bring Wiley in, have your best five on the field, but also are you susceptible to some stunts and some blitzes that maybe you're not otherwise? I don't. How's that for a great answer? Thank you for having the expert on
I
here, so
will
I can
put
tell
I
you I
will
have
put
no
this
idea.
I will put this caveat in there. The thought process came to mind where I was thinking, well, if you're worried about the size and the strength inside, why wouldn't you kick Brandon Coleman in at guard, match up with that youth with Jalen Carter, kind of being that big mass, and he's got to have a quick guy. Have Lucas start at left tackle, who he's played left tackle this season. Nobody else really has to adjust. I think that would be an easy one. But that being said, real quick, Michael, your score prediction for the game. Who wins?
Man, this is a 50-50 game. Chiefs Bills is a 50-50 game. I've been picking the good guys, for the last few weeks just because if it's close, they win. There's a million reasons not to pick them. I think the line is correct. I think the Eagles are favorites in this game. But you're not going to see me picking against number five because I've looked foolish enough this year doing it.
Mm.
Give me a 3-point win. I don't think this is as high scoring as Detroit, partially because of the weather, partially because of the talent on the other side. I think Philly's a better team than Detroit, top to bottom. Better roster, better talent. I don't think
Okay.
they're better coached, but I think they're better players. Give me, a 24-21 kind of win.
Hopefully, my co-host here can pick up what you're putting down there, Michael, because he picked him to lose last episode, and now he has to pick him again to lose
Those
because
You act like I was the only one of this like unrational thinking about that. Like Detroit
I,
was loaded.
I I'll say this: whatever you did last week, you better do it this week. I don't need to be coming on here blaming you next week. That's not. We
I will
don't
say this
know.
though. I caveated it with I only did that because everyone else picked them to win. So I was like, I got to. Someone has to be the bad guy on here.
Yeah, and if I was putting money on it, I think you put the money on the Eagles because the numbers tell you that's what you do. It's just, I mean, number five, man, he's special.
He absolutely special. Michael, have a good evening. Enjoy your night, sir. Thank you for stopping by with us and being able to break down this game with us a little bit, man.
Thanks
I
for having me.
appreciate
You
it.
guys have a good one.
You too, Michael. Have a good night. All right, everybody. We just talked to the man, Mr. Michael Phillips. Always appreciate the funny man
I don't know why
himself.
I just clapped and did that. I don't. I thought we were like ending the podcast for some reason, and I was like, we're still going.
That's unfortunate. What's up, man? So let's answer some of these fan questions before we predict this game. Second question from the Colonel: how fired up is Zach Ertz for this game against his former team? And do you think Cliff Kingsbury will drop a couple plays just for him?
I think if we get it like in the third and got to get it, or like a fourth and got to get it, or within that red zone area, I will say yes because that seems to be where he seems to call on Zach Ertz the most, and that seems to be where Jaden Daniels trusts Zach Ertz the most. But then that third and got to get it in the middle of the field, get down to the red zone. Excuse me, just because Zach Ertz is so good in the red zone, he's good at boxing out his defenders and whatnot. But yeah, I would think was last game the one where no, that was the first game where what's his name said something to Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz got like mad at it, or like pissed off at him and yelled at him, whatever it was. So he kind of got his revenge on that second game. Going back to Philly, round number 3. Obviously, he's a Philly legend, and it didn't go the way that he wanted it to last time he was in Philly. So I feel like this is the game where he like you said, he taps into his inner Travis Kelce, where he's just like, oh, y'all are calling me no yak Zach. Watch this. He trucks a couple dudes, drags a couple dudes. He makes a clinching catch, a crazy like a game shifting momentum type of catch within the game. So I do think this is going to be a big game for Zach Ertz in his return to probably maybe depending on if he wants to come back next year. It might be his last return to Philly.
My man. Now, look, to go on to other questions, Deluxe brought up a good one that I had reluctantly not talked about already, but rest in peace to guest of this show, Pete Medhurst. Obviously
Right.
passed away the other day, which is so sad. I feel horrible for his family. I know he had a daughter that he was very involved with and everything. So prayers out to the Medhurst family.
Definitely prayers to the family.
It's terrible to hear about Pete, but we love him. I loved talking with him. And it's unfortunate because we wanted him back on the radio, and then gone so soon. It's so unfortunate.
Great during draft season as well, man.
Yeah,
Dude could
really.
tell you about a top 10 pick, a top 50 pick, a top 100 pick. He could tell you about a guy that's in a Division II school that's going to go undrafted, but will make a name for himself in the league. And he just had knowledge on any and every type of sport, any type of player. So, like you said, condolences to the family.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the next question, I'll answer this one since we're up against the time here. From Deluxe, it will be a team effort to stop Barkley. Which player on defense having a great game will help the most? Well, I think up front, the trenches is easy to say in that sort of realm, but I'll go with Jeremy Chin. I think Jeremy Chin's defense against Dallas Goedert and also in the run fits is going to be huge. We know about the big plays with Barkley on the ground. Well, your safeties have to be able to come up and put the caps on the run. They have to be able to come up and make tackles. And this is going to be a game for Jeremy Chin to show that he is a fantastic tackler and there's nothing getting behind him and being the plug on that defense. So I think if anyone's going to help out the most, I think it would be Jeremy Chin. Obviously, it's easy to say linebackers here. If Frankie Louvu, Dante Fowler can replicate what they did last week against the run, they'll be in a very good position. But I'll just put Jeremy Chin in his play this weekend is going to be absolutely crucial. Now, Hall, the next question is from Jeff Miles. If we do win, will be the first person you call and / contact and why?
It's a good question. I don't know if I'll like personally like call or like text anybody or like anything like that. Like, yeah, I don't really have anybody that I would like call or text. It would be more of like in the group chat used to be in with like Dan and everybody. I'd just be in the group chat just popping my shit. I'd probably I'm sure Henry would probably hit up like the warehouse group chat with me and Vinny in it because we're all Skins fans, Commanders fans. Uh, yeah, I don't really have anybody I could like. I would like off the top of my head, I would like, oh, let me call and text this person. You know what I'm saying? Like, more than likely, unless I go somewhere and watch it, I'm gonna be at my mom's house. So, I guess if I'm not watching it at my mom's house, I'd probably say maybe my mom. But yeah, I'll probably be there. So I'll just turn
What
to her
a
and be like, ah.
what a lame response. I
What
agree
do you
with
want me
you
to
there.
say? Like, I'm gonna call my grandfather that put me on to this team back in 1955. Like, nah.
Shut up. Now the next question is Andy Lockhart in the Discord. Thank you, Andy. Saquon on betting apps for rushing only is 130 yards.
Crazy.
You going with the under or the over, and why? I think for this, I think that you're going to have to go with the under. And the reason why I say that is typically against divisional opponents, it doesn't go the way you think it is. And I think with Jonathan Allen back is going to be a huge plus. I think there's going to be a big emphasis on Washington's behalf of being able to limit Saquon, which might open things up. But that's where the reliability of Lattimore and Sanders still, and they're playing on the wide receivers out wide, it's going to be huge. So I would go with the under here, as crazy as that is to say, because of how much it is. I know everyone's expecting for the Eagles and the radio host to expect them to go for 200 on Washington. All I'll say is I'd go with the under just on the emphasis. They're playing special football, man, and I don't want to go against them in that regard. The next question, this one is from Tim Towner. Did Washington beat Detroit, or did Detroit lose to Washington?
Oh, we beat Detroit. I think that, like, obviously, like, did they make mistakes like 12 men on the field or calling a stupid reverse pass with a wide receiver and him making the stupid decision to actually throw the pass to the running back who was clearly covered by Mike Sammers still? They shot themselves in the foot a couple times, but like I've told people on Twitter that, oh, you only get lucky because da 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 da. Guess what? You can call it lucky, whatever you want to call it. You still got to put yourself in position to get lucky at those times. And at the end of the day, the overthrow was an overthrow by Jared Goff. How many times this season have we seen them overthrow it and they just brick hands drop the ball? Quan Martin caught it, sixed it for us finally. So I would say that it was Washington beating them because Washington put the pressure on them to cause those mistakes.
Absolutely, they did, and I'm not gonna. No reason to apologize for being not lucky, but being opportunistic and
Yes, sir.
getting on where you needed to. So I'm not gonna apologize for that win by any stretch. Washington went in there and did their job. That at the end of the day, it's all that matters. Now let's get into our predictions for this game coming up. This is huge, man. NFC Championship Hall. This is crazy to even talk about, but we're here, baby. Look at us. It's time for us. Time to put your meat out. Time to put your meat out on the table, my friend. So let's do your predictions. The Commanders on offense and red zone, they are 6th. Points per game, they're 4th. Rushing yards, they're 3rd. In passing yards, they're 13th. And on third down conversion percentage, they're 6th. Now with the Eagles, they're 21st in red zone, 7th in points per game, 2nd in rushing yards, 31st in passing yards, and 10th on third down. What's your prediction in the Unsung Hero?
Man, who would have thought we'd get to this point? I think that they've shown throughout the season they have resilience. They've shown throughout the season that they have the confidence and not only the quarterback but in the coaching staff, and most importantly, Dan Quinn, the head coach. They've totally bought into what he's been preaching since day one. And this has been a magical season. It's been a magical carpet ride season. You want to call it luck, whatever, da 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 da. Again, you look back at all the teams outside of like the Patriots who went undefeated. Look at all the teams that went on championship runs. They had a couple breaks here and there. They had a couple lucky, whatever you want to call it, here and there. Well, I think that magic carpet ride, we continue on it for 2 more games. And I say 2 more games because I'm picking us to win this game. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be one of those, the cardiac commanders come out to play again. And it's going to be in the hands, like it has been all year, of Jaden Daniels with X amount of minutes left. Put the ball in Five's hands and bring us to the promised land. So I think it's a close one. I think it is going to be a lower scoring game, kind of towards the makeup of the Tampa game. I'll go 24-23 Washington. 5 takes us to the promised land on the last couple seconds of the game.
Absolutely. I think the unsung hero is going to be Zach Ertz.
Oh, I
I,
forgot
th-
my Zach. Yeah, I was going to say my unsung hero actually was going to be Zach Ertz. I
I
think he
think this I think this
goes ham in
game
Philly.
This game comes down to Washington putting pressure on Philadelphia to do things they're not normally accustomed to. Because of how many times Washington has converted on fourth downs, I could see the Eagles trying to flex a little bit in that category, a 4th and 3, a 4th and 4, being in that territory, not wanting to kick a field goal and going for it, where Washington's defense can really take advantage of that kind of situation, be able to get a turnover, get the ball back in our offense's hands. It's going to be tough, but I do think that they're going to be able to get the ball rolling on the ground, possibly using Ekeler out in space, then using Brian Robinson up the middle just to confuse them, using the wide receiver motions, and then being able to throw the football. I think this team has a lot of confidence, and this could be the Zach Ertz coming through in a pivotal, crucial moment. And we've seen this team that the storylines kind of write themselves. So, but, I'm going to be realistic in this scenario. I'm going with my team. We're in the NFC Championship. 40-0, Washington wins. All right, everybody. We will see you guys again after the game on Sunday. Best of luck, everyone. Please be safe. You're going out to Philly. Don't be a knucklehead. You know they're going to try to get under your skin. Be smart about it.
If we win, just don't be roaming the streets like we were in Baltimore, because they're going to be ready to crash out, ready to punch something because they lost and they're pissed off.
Even if they win, they might be trying to eat something. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone get up there, be safe, and if we come away with that dub, leave safe as well.
All right, everybody. We'll see you again on Sunday after the game. Hopefully it's victorious. That's all we can do is hope and pray that the good Lord and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ help us out in this scenario against the Philadelphia Eagles. We could definitely use it. 40-0. That's my realistic prediction. All right, everybody. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.